workers were a bit dumbfounded. Before they could get a clear look at what emerged from the coffin, they were killed one after another. The foreman, terrified, scrambled away, only to fall right into the embrace of the monster.
Cannot imagine how thirsty I am. I am terribly sorry.
The man finished speaking and then bit down on the foreman's neck, sucking him dry into a mummy. It turned out he was a vampire who had lived for 200 years. Named Barnabas, 200 years ago, Barnabas followed his parents from Great Britain to the American continent, where they established their family business in a remote port town. In just 10 years, they became the local magnates through the fishing industry. As his parents aged, Barnabas smoothly took over the family business. The first thing he did was to build the Collinwood mansion in the town. Becoming the top second-generation rich, Barnabas naturally became the object of affection for the local women. Angelique, a maid at the Collinwood estate, felt the same. Angelique confessed her love to Barnabas, but he cruelly rejected her, as he already had his beloved, Josette. Little did Barnabas know, Angelique was actually a seasoned witch. Angelique, angered by Barnabas's rejection, crushed a seahorse, and statues in the estate fell from the sky, killing Barnabas's elderly parents. Then, Angelique threw a feather into a pot, and Barnabas's beloved Josette was cursed, leading her to leap from a towering cliff. Having witnessed his loved ones leave him one after the other, a heartbroken Barnabas, in utter despair, also jumped off the cliff without hesitation. Unfortunately, the outcome was not as he had hoped. Barnabas, looking at his unscathed body, raised his eyes to see Angelique above the cliff.
What have you done?
Then, Barnabas was cursed by Angelique, his fingers gradually elongating into those of a true vampire, accompanied by eternal darkness and loneliness. Yet, this vicious woman was still not satisfied. Angelique manipulated the townspeople to come to Barnabas's house and sealed him inside a coffin, burying it on a secluded mountain. Barnabas spent a long 200 years in darkness until now, looking at the brightly lit streets, somewhat lost. However, following the route in his memory, he walked into a gloomy, dense forest. Passing through a decrepit iron gate, Barnabas arrived at the estate he had built with his own hands. Although the once glorious family had declined, the luxurious castle was still majestic, and the lights were still on. Barnabas hypnotized the gatekeeper Willie to serve him, leading him into the interior of the castle. The inside of the castle was very clean.
Have you ever seen such majesty? Every day.
Barnabas proudly admired his past masterpiece. From the perfectly carved brass statues to the exquisite chandeliers only seen in palaces, he spoke at length. At this moment, Barnabas saw Carolyn on the sofa.
When did they start allowing women of the night on estate grounds?
David, sitting on the ground, realized that the Barnabas in front of him looked exactly like the ancestor in the portrait. Barnabas was pleased that his descendants remembered him, so he formally introduced himself. Just then, a woman stepped forward and interrupted Barnabas.
He says his name is Barnabas Collins. And I'm pretty sure he called me a hooker.
That'll do, Carolyn. A word, please.
After a brief conversation, Barnabas learned that the woman before him was named Elizabeth, the current heir to Collinwood. At this moment, the mistress of the estate was not very friendly towards Barnabas. She thought Barnabas was just a swindler who knew about the Collins family's vampire curse and came to slay demons and exorcise evil in exchange for a reward. Elizabeth had seen many such people. Barnabas had no choice but to find a way to prove himself.
I know the body of this mansion as well as I know my own. Every nook, every corner, every secret.
That's where I keep my...
It was a bit awkward. Barnabas had to resort to his trump card. He used his cane to activate a mechanism, and a painting on the wall slowly unfolded, revealing a secret passage beneath the fireplace.
I am Barnabas Collins.
Elizabeth confirmed that the man before her was indeed her ancestor and also a vampire. She clutched the small knife in her hand. Barnabas led a nervous Elizabeth into the secret passageway, where a variety of gold, silver and jewelry were displayed.
We've been sitting on top of a fortune all these years.
Eventually, they reached an agreement, and Barnabas became a new member of the Collins family as a distant relative. The next day, all members of the family had breakfast together. Apart from Barnabas, the entire family consisted only of Elizabeth. her husband, and their children. Barnabas had not expected the Collins family to have fallen into such decline. Additionally, there were other members like Julia, the family's private doctor, and David's tutor Victoria. However, when Victoria appeared, Barnabas's heart was tumultuously stirred because Victoria looked exactly like his deceased lover. On the other side, news of the accident at the construction site spread, and a woman was still standing at the scene of the incident. She was Angelique, the witch who cursed Barnabas and sealed him in a coffin. Since the downfall of the Barnabas family, Angelique had stripped the Collins family of their once proud industry. She became a local celebrity, driving her sports car every day with unmatched flair. However, now that the coffin was opened, Angelique's long-buried memories emerged, and she drove her sports car directly to Collinwood mansion. She completely ignored Willie and walked straight in. Barnabas hurried downstairs in his pajamas to greet the visitor.
Hello, Barnabas. My name is Angie Bouchard.
They went to the parlor, and just as Barnabas was about to confront Angelique, she interrupted him. Angelique took off her coat as if she were at her own home. Barnabas was about to attack Angelique when she used her witchcraft to fling open the curtains, forcing Barnabas to retreat into the shadows due to the intense sunlight. Barnabas was very frustrated that even as a vampire, he was no match for Angelique. Unable to confront her with force, he had to find another way. Barnabas first went to the Collins family's abandoned factory, hired workers, and renovated it. Looking at Angelique's industry across the way, he vowed to bring it down completely. Barnabas found the leader of the dock's fleet and used magic to control him, making all the fishing boats serve him. This was a fatal blow to Angelique. Without the support of the fleet, her fishing business lost its source of raw materials. So, Angelique approached Barnabas and played the emotional card. After 200 years of singleness, Barnabas couldn't resist the temptation, but Barnabas still didn't plan to let Angelique off the hook. During this time, Barnabas and Victoria's relationship grew stronger, but he worried that his vampire identity would trouble Victoria. Therefore, Barnabas turned to Julia to see if she could turn him back into a human. Julia agreed and brought him human blood, claiming it would turn Barnabas back into a human if injected into his body. Knowing he was about to become human again, Barnabas was filled with hope for love. As the Collins family's industry thrived, Barnabas renovated Collinwood mansion, hiring a large number of servants and gardeners. Not only that, but he also prepared to host a ball, inviting locals to increase the Collins family's fame. This old British gentleman thought that hosting a ball was the best way to showcase status and open up the Collins family's reputation. However, on the eve of the ball, Barnabas returned home to find that Julia had injected his blood into herself.
You're not using your blood to make me human. You're using my blood to make yourself immortal.
Barnabas hated the feeling of being deceived. So, at night, Barnabas and Willie dumped Julia's body into the sea, unnoticed. Soon, the Collins family ball was held as scheduled, and nearby residents came to attend. The ball looked a bit like a disco. During the ball, Barnabas finally confessed his feelings to Victoria, and they kissed under the moonlight. This scene was witnessed by the uninvited Angelique, her skin cracking just like her heart. Angelique couldn't let this go unchecked any longer. She invited Barnabas to her company and threatened him with the secret of killing Julia, demanding he become her business partner and lover. But Barnabas's heart was only for Victoria, and he refused Angelique without hesitation. However, as Barnabas prepared to leave, an accident occurred. Angelique's men loaded the coffin into a car. Before leaving, Angelique used witchcraft to blow up the Collins family's factory, the fire instantly reddening the river. Then, Angelique took the coffin to a tomb, planning to bury Barnabas there forever. To make Barnabas less lonely, Angelique left him a pair of panties before leaving.
See you in a couple centuries, lover boy.
However, as soon as Angelique left, David arrived at the tomb and opened the coffin lid.
Why do you have ladies' underwear in your face?
On the other side, Angelique took out evidence of Barnabas's murder and played it over the police car's loudspeaker for the whole town to hear. Then Angelique told them Barnabas was a vampire. Willie, hearing this, immediately drove back home to report, and then he frantically fled the Collinwood mansion. Soon, all the townspeople gathered outside the estate. To protect his family, Barnabas admitted he was a vampire and told the townspeople that Angelique was a monster just like him. Barnabas then approached Angelique, grabbed her neck, and fiercely bit it in front of everyone. Angelique remained unharmed, her expression turning terrifying.
Excuse me.
Finally, Everyone saw her true face as a witch. Afterward, Angelique walked into the castle.
Missed me.
Then, using her witchcraft, Angelique made the flames from the fireplace burst out, quickly setting the castle ablaze. Knowing Barnabas was immortal, Angelique used a statue to control him. Then Angelique prepared to harm Barnabas's family. At that moment, David walked over and asked Angelique to stop. Immediately after, the only spirit of the Collins family appeared and roared, blowing Angelique away. Before the flames engulfed the castle, Barnabas asked Angelique why she killed his lover back then. Angelique silently cried, then reached into her body, pulled out her heart, and gave it to Barnabas, but the heart only beat a few times before withering away, marking the end of Angelique's life. Barnabas then realized Victoria was missing and began searching frantically throughout the castle. Finally, under the guidance of the spirit, he went to the cliff. At the edge of the cliff, Barnabas found Victoria, unaware that she had been cursed. Suddenly, Victoria jumped. In a moment of desperation, Barnabas bit Victoria's neck, turning her into a vampire. On the rock, Barnabas held her in his arms. The film ends here. See you next time.